Am I the idiot for telling my brother-in-law it's cringe to continue saying he's child-free whenever I ask him to watch my son? My wife, 27, and I, 27, have a 4-year-old son. We've been having an incredibly busy work schedule of the last 2 years, and family's been doing a great job helping out with our son. We usually have members of my in-laws take our son whenever we have a work trip or a shift coming up. From my wife's mom, to her sister, to her dad, all except for my 31-year-old brother-in-law, wife's brother. He's made it clear he is just not interested in spending time with his nephew, keeps saying that the reason for that is that he's actually child-free. For so many emergencies he has turned me and my wife away when we begged him to watch our son, and he didn't even budge or apologize for his attitude. It all came to head a couple of days ago. I had a work meeting while my wife was out of town and my in-laws were attending a wedding, so no one was free to watch my son except for my brother-in-law. I showed up to his place and told him I was desperate for help and needed him to just watch my son for 2 hours. He refused, even suggested I take him with me to work, but that's not a good suggestion. I begged him and he just said no. I had enough. I confronted him and asked why does he not like his nephew, and he threw out that, "No, it's just that I'm child-free" excuse, which made me lose it. I told him to just stop because it's cringe of him to keep saying that and use it as an excuse to be unsupportive of me and his sister and cold towards his nephew. I told him he should really do better and stop being so negative, but he got mad and said I had no right to disrespect his lifestyle or choices, but it's the attitude that gets me. We had an exchange of words where he said my son isn't his responsibility whatsoever, then I left. He complained to my in-laws and they called me out for disrespecting their son and treating him like that. They insisted that he's not responsible for my son and I shouldn't expect so much from him, and then guilting him about it. They wanted me to apologize and my wife said I should, but he was about as helpful and supportive as a rock, so I decided I will take my time before I consider apologizing. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. I don't care about the child-free thing, OP. What he said isn't the problem, because he doesn't need an excuse to not babysit someone's child. He's your kid and your responsibility. Even if you have emergencies, is it so hard to pay for a sitter? The entitlement and irresponsibility here is jaw-dropping. You are not arranging proper childcare for your son, although it's shockingly easy. You are not planning for emergencies. You are forcing someone who is A, unpaid, B, unwilling, and C, unhappy to babysit your son, without consideration to their needs and wants. You are taking others' free work for granted. You are disrespecting people who gave you tremendous favors. You are blaming others for your lack of planning. You are disrespecting a reasonable boundary that was expressed multiple times. You are the idiot. For freak's sake, how entitled are you? Your brother-in-law has been clear about who he is and what he won't do, but because that's not convenient to you, you feel you can disrespect you. This is a failure of your organization. How can you guys not have a sitter? I am a single dad and never ended up in your situation, because I planned for it. Plus, how many emergencies is OP having? It's not an emergency unless someone is unsafe or hurt. Get a babysitter. Stop expecting your brother-in-law, who has said no time and time again, to do a huge favor for you. What? Just. Why do you keep having emergencies? How are work meetings emergencies and not things that you knew about days in advance? Why have you not organized actual daily childcare? What the heck is wrong with you? You are the idiot. Ring around. Find a childcare center. Pay the childcare center to look after your child while you're at work. Your poor kid sounds like he has zero routine in his life. I'd expect this sort of chaos from teen parents. Yeesh. Am I the idiot for telling my brother-in-law he has destroyed 2 marriages? My brother-in-law, Dave, 54, moved with my husband and me last year. Dave's wife divorced him at the start of the pandemic because she didn't want to be home with him. Dave has had issues for about 10 years because he had untreated autism. He goes to therapy and expects everyone to do what his therapist says. Within 6 months of staying with us, I stopped cooking altogether, and I get takeout for myself. This is because Dave never liked what I made. Dave would start saying because he cooks, now we have to do dishes. I told him no because I'm not eating the food he cooks. Dishes have piled up to disgusting levels regularly. I work full-time, and I'm working on my master's. Dave got my husband to start going to therapy with him, and now they will gang up on me in my home for not helping Dave with his issues related to autism. Spent Christmas with my parents without my husband, and my mom told me I'm always welcome to live with them. It's out of state, but I already work remotely. This week Dave and my husband came back from therapy and gave me a list of recommendations from the therapist on how to make Dave's life easier. I threw away the paper in front of them, and he started to gather my documents and some suitcases to take on a flight. I told Dave I hope he's happy because he has now destroyed 2 marriages by being a selfish prick. My husband acted shocked that I would speak to his brother like that and I should go to therapy with both of them. I declined and moved out. My husband's family thinks I'm a monster because I have talked to Dave, blaming him for destroying 2 marriages. I'm just fed up. Not the idiot. You married your husband, not his brother. Unless you guys discussed the possibility of his brother moving in before you were married, he essentially changed the relationship dynamic without your input. 1. Going to therapy means working on bettering yourself and learning to deal with the world on your own, not to change everything about others' lives to make it easier to deal. Others can only help so much, the rest is on him. 2. What kind of therapist gives their client a list of things others should do to improve their condition? And then expect said others to base their lives around that list? Either this therapist is a crook, or they aren't qualified to be one at all. I highly doubt an actual fully qualified therapist wrote that list. So yeah, I don't believe in the integrity of his therapist. Even without therapist problems, it seems like there's no way OP and soon-to-be ex-husband could save this. 3. As the top comment said, asking husband to go to therapy with Dave and basing their whole lives around that therapist's words means changing their whole relationship dynamic. He accepted that, didn't stand up for OP and blamed OP for not wanting it. Yikes. 4. He's ganging up against his own wife in her house. And for what? Family? Being autistic isn't an excuse to be a controlling entitled prick, sorry. 5. Dave has stayed in their house for way too long. A whole year is just OP's husband enabling Dave at this point. The whole my sister-in-law won't wash the dishes because she has to work and doesn't eat my food, so I'm just gonna let the dishes pile on until it's too disgusting to not wash. Surely she'll wash it. Thing is enough basis to kick him out. Not the idiot. OP, your brother-in-law did not ruin your marriage, your husband did by disregarding your needs and feelings and bulldozing you. While it is admirable that he is trying to help his brother, he is doing it at the expense of you and your marriage. The fact that you stopped cooking, and he did not ask why, that the dishes piled up and he did not clean a single one, that he allowed you to be disrespected in your own home, and he did not say a word, OP, your husband does not think about you anymore. If you still love him, couples counseling could help, but at this point I am getting the message that you are over him. Good luck. Am I the idiot for calling my brother-in-law out for his weaponized incompetence and calling him pathetic at dinner? I, female 24, have a sister, female 32, who has a husband, male 38, who is the poster child of weaponized incompetence. They have 4 kids, female 10, male 8, male 5, female 3, and she's pregnant. My sister works a full-time job, 40+ hours a week, cleans her entire house, cooks, takes care of all her children without him doing anything. It is seriously mind-blowing that she wakes up at like 4 a.m., cooks breakfast, does chores, gets all of her kids ready for school, takes them all to school and daycare, and all he does is stay home and work, and when his kids get home, after my sister picks them up, of course, he will play with them for a little and then go play video games until he falls asleep. She actually makes more than him. My fiancé, male 26, and I had to stay with them for 6 weeks while our home was being renovated, and since we both work from home, we helped her, and it is amazing how much happier she is when she has help. I helped with the kids, and my fiancé even drove her to doctor's appointments. Her husband literally only acknowledges he is a parent when his family is around, then he is a God-fearing, hard-working father of 5. He is the one that wanted more kids. She wanted to stop after her last baby, but he needed more boys. I am seriously concerned not only for her but her kids as well, because now her oldest is seeing what's happening and trying to help, but my sister is prideful and refuses to let her child do anything. Me and this man have never gotten along. He's been acting like this since their 8-year-old was born. I've tried talking to her about leaving, but she doesn't want her kids to grow up in a broken home, and unfortunately her experience with our parents' divorce was completely different than mine, so she doesn't understand that a divorce would benefit her kids. She thinks they need their mom and dad together. Cut to this past weekend, her and her husband threw a pre-Thanksgiving potluck where our entire family and his was there. I stayed with my sister a few days before because I knew he wouldn't help. So we're at dinner all talking, and I mention we are trying for a baby, and my brother-in-law makes an offhanded comment to him about how hard fatherhood is, and I snapped and said, "Like you would know." He looked taken aback and asked me what I meant. I unloaded on him, calling him a pathetic excuse for a man who makes my 8 months pregnant sister do everything for their family. I went off for a solid 10 minutes and he sat there shrinking in his seat. I left. Last night my sister called me and thanked me for standing up for her and told me she appreciated me. Although today I got a very nasty text from him telling me I'm a terrible person because I lied in front of his family. His mom is angry at him and is moving in with them to help her out, and I've made him the laughingstock of his family. He certainly thinks so, but am I the idiot for doing this? Not the idiot. Not only did you speak the truth to a guy with learned helplessness, you also seem to have gotten some positive help for your sister. Seriously, if he's that bad, he deserves to be a laughingstock. Maybe that will bring some more positive change, whether it's his finally helping, or your sister leaving him. Not the idiot. Your sister and her mother-in-law saw it as a true reflection of his behavior, and I hope he is embarrassed enough to pull his weight going forward. Little aside though, your sister may not want the children to help, but she should let them and even encourage them, because otherwise she will raise 5 more of your brother-in-law. Not the idiot. Not even a justified idiot as some comments suggest. You had a breaking point and he was taking credit for the children's upbringing that your sister single-handedly should be thanked for. He knows he's in the wrong, which is why he sat quietly and kept pretending in front of his family. He would have driven your sister into an early grave. True colors are bound to come out sooner or later when his mother has moved in. He will not be able to pull the facade forever. When that happens, he will either have to change properly or risk losing the support of his family. All of it starting with you speaking up for your sister against his lies. Well done. Am I the idiot for being angry my brother-in-law is buying my father-in-law's house? My wife's parents have owned a house for 20 years. Her mother passed away a few years ago, and since then her father has been living in the house alone. Her brother's family helps out a lot and has him over for dinner almost every night. My wife and I visit about once a week and help out, but not as much as my brother-in-law's family. My father-in-law owes about $150,000 on the mortgage, and the home is worth about $500,000. My brother-in-law's family has been talking about taking ownership of the home and letting my father-in-law live with them for years because he wants to age in place, but he doesn't have any money to retire. The plans have always been very vague and no one has ever shared any details with me and my wife or discussed how things would work. I always assumed that my wife would get a portion of the equity of the house, either when my brother-in-law bought it or when my father-in-law passed away. We were out to dinner last night and the topic of the house came up, and my brother-in-law mentioned he would be putting his own home on the market in about a month and buying his father's house. I suggested that all the family should get together with a lawyer to figure out a fair way of distributing the equity. My brother-in-law and his family got very upset, said we only care about the money, and that they are only looking out for what's best for the father. This morning we visited my father-in-law to try to discuss the situation. It did not go well. It seems likely he had willed the house 100% to his son, but he wouldn't tell us one way or the other. Everyone thinks we're huge idiots and we're trying to claim our inheritance while my father-in-law is still alive. No one will give us a straight answer about the plan, but it seems like my brother-in-law is going to take ownership of the house without having to pay much if anything for it, and that they will get the house completely when my father-in-law passes away without any other family members getting anything. They say that since they're going to let him live there and fix the place up, that they should get it. They don't seem to be willing to discuss any alternative arrangements. If my father-in-law wants to just give the house to his oldest son, that's his choice and we would respect that. No one will tell us if that is or isn't the plan. If my father-in-law's will says for the house to be divided by his 3 children, we would probably get around $50,000 to $100,000 if he were to pass away without my brother-in-law buying it. If he buys it, it looks like we would get nothing. My sister-in-law angrily said they weren't going to pay us off when I asked about our interest in the house. It's so tense that I don't know if I ever want to see my father-in-law and brother-in-law's family ever again. It's not the money, it's the secrecy, deception, and unfairness. They say all we care about is the money, but at the same time they seem perfectly willing to keep the $350,000 in equity on the house and give us nothing. You are the idiot. Wow, you're entitled as all heck. It's extremely common for the child who cares for an aging parent to get the house or more inheritance in return. They are already doing a huge amount to care for him and will do even more when they move in together and he ages. They are all thinking like a family, figuring out the best way to care for dad, and you and your wife are just thinking about money. They don't owe you crap. Divide the equity of a living person's home? You are the idiot times 1,000. It's not even your dad's house, it's your father-in-law's home. You have no skin in this game, keep yourself out of it. You are the idiot 100%. You only express interest in the money, while your brother-in-law and his family are there to actually help your father-in-law. Also, you haven't mentioned your wife's thoughts on any of this, Which is interesting considering it's her family. You are the idiot. You see only the money. Don't value the commitment to be father-in-law's primary caretakers and how much that will cost brother-in-law's family. Lost privacy and time is money, not to say inconvenience for unknown time, can be decades. Also, it's not your business. It's between them. If he were put in a home, the house would be sold and all those funds would go into that and his retirement. Do the other siblings have funds to buy an equal share of the house to save it and willing to be primary caregivers and finance his retirement? Are you willing to sell your house, move your family to his house and live with father-in-law? But the answer to all that is not only if you and your wife are willing. It's the other way around. Does father-in-law want to share a household and his daily life with your family? It's not easy sharing a space, being old and vulnerable and needing help in later care. Helping once a week is not the same as day to day. Accepting help is not easy. And it's not about you kids. It's about what makes him comfortable, letting him choose and control this last chapter of his life. Obviously he feels more comfortable with his son, his wife and their kids. Other than putting a wrench to your wife and yours life, you are still young and childless and maybe he feels it's better for you to experience life a little more, and have kids without being roped into caring for babies and old people at the same time.